Hi everyone. My name is Brooke Hartle, and I am here from the Hahn Memorial Library in Clayton. I wish I could be in front of you talking today. Unfortunately, we are going to do it this way. Hopefully, at some point, we can all get back together again. Let me see. I have been the library director at Hahn for the last 2 years. I was only here for about a year before the pandemic hit, and it was my first time working at a public library. Before that, I worked in archives, so it's definitely a little bit new to me. So I wanted to talk to you about some collaboration, and it might be a bit of a different type of collaboration than we're used to seeing, but like they say, necessity is the mother of invention, and so we did something last year and, kind of rolled with it, and it worked out really well, and I wanted to share that. So collaboration is such a fundamental thing for libraries, especially I feel like the last 20 years. We collaborate with community partners and businesses and schools, environmental organizations, and so many other things. It's collaboration's been a focus for annual reporting and even grant requirements. I've had quite a few grants that I've written that have required some sort of community collaboration. We've developed some amazing partnerships in libraries because of recognizing the need for collaboration. So because we collaborate with all kinds of organizations now, have we maybe overlooked one of the most obvious maybe, collaborations of them all? And that I think that's collaborating with other libraries, not necessarily, other branches that you might have, but at least other libraries in your system, in your surrounding areas, in other states even. In our library system, we have 65 libraries in total in 4 counties. It's a big library system. It covers a lot of area. We are all rural and small libraries. Our budgets range from less than $10,000 to close to $2 million. That's obviously only 1 or 2 libraries in the system that have that. Most of us are somewhere lower in the middle of that. Most of our libraries are a rural and small library. We have always done a lot with the little we have in any library, of course, that's what we do. But while we are a library system, I feel like we often operate as separate libraries. We have our autonomous libraries, and we are so used to just kind of thinking of ourselves as separate entities, and that's just the way that it was, and it worked. When the pandemic hit, libraries were thrown into chaos for a bit. Each of us was trying to understand how to bring services to our communities under new circumstances. Summer reading was coming up. How were we going to be able to have any type of summer reading program? This was back at the beginning when you couldn't probably even be in your building. A lot of us were working from home and things like that. How were we going to be able to have any kind of summer reading program? We were especially concerned because the summer slide is always on our minds, and with the way things ended the school last year, the kids were already sort of in the summer slide before summer hit. I have a 12-year-old, and he was finishing 6th grade, and we'd be trying to work at home and help him with his homework and things like that. And there's a reason I did not become a teacher. I'm not very good at it. And I can remember us sitting and trying to do geometry, and I also became a librarian, so I didn't have to do math. And we were almost in tears, the two of us, because it was so frustrating trying to do something we didn't know how to do. And I don't want to say we gave up, but a lot of parents decided that they just didn't know how to do it. And so, these kids were not getting the proper instruction because, the parents just weren't trained on that. The teachers weren't trained on how to do it from home and things like that. It just wasn't working. So I feel like the summer slide, started long before school ended last year, and that was very concerning for us. And so we wanted to be able to have a summer reading program. We just didn't know how we were going to do it, especially because things that we were doing at that point in time were taking 10 times longer than they had any other time, because we were trying to do everything from home and long distance and through Zoom and things like that. And it just, everything seems so much harder not in person, which I don't know about anyone else, surprised me, because we do live in such a technological age that you would think it would have been easier, and it wasn't. So being the summer reading fanatic that I am, it's definitely one of my favorite parts of the job. I decided that we needed to start talking about this pretty quickly. Whether this was even going to be possible, how we wanted to handle it, what everybody else's ideas were. I like to talk to other directors just to see, they have great ideas, and I like to get their ideas to help me develop my ideas. So we put together a meeting just among the 65 libraries, and anybody that wanted to attend from the libraries was welcome, and we could just brainstorm ideas and see what the possibilities were from there. So after we met, it sort of took on a life of its own, and as we chatted more about summer reading, it became clear that many libraries had limitations. So first we had limitations on time and staffing. We were not at our libraries. Some libraries were not even working really from home, or their hours were limited. Staffing was cut, at least temporarily. I know I had to furlough 3 staff members. So I was down, to just myself and a clerk, trying to do the daily stuff. And so that was one hurdle. Another hurdle was the technology barrier. Virtual programming hadn't made it to most of our libraries yet. Excuse me. We relied almost solely on in-person activities. I think most libraries still did at that point. Maybe some libraries had some things here and there, some lives and stuff going on Facebook and things like that. A little bit more on YouTube maybe, but I think for the most part, we just really relied on in-person interactions to deliver our programming. And virtual programming hadn't really made it too far. So many different challenges were coming up in our discussion about the barriers with hours and staffing and technology that were going to be hard for pivoting services to provide things to our community. So a lot of people just did not have the technological skill to even know where to get started to providing those types of digital virtual services that were on our minds, but we weren't really sure how to make them happen. So at the beginning of this, I talked about collaboration with community entities. And these are, of course, absolutely essential and so useful. But this was a point where no one was really doing business. And those kinds of collaborations just weren't really going to help us too much. So I think that more than anything, that made us realize how unique libraries are to anything else in the community. It's one thing, for some of the other businesses to kind of shut down or whatever. And not that anybody wants to see that, but libraries are thinking, okay, but we still have to serve our communities somehow. That's what we're here for. So how can we do that in this new environment? So as a group, we realized two things. That one, we were pretty much on our own as libraries go, and our community was really going to need us. And two, we had better rely on each other to cover the spread, so to speak. And let me explain what I mean by that. When we're talking about rural and small libraries, we're talking about libraries that may have one employee, libraries that can't afford to do a lot of training on technology, libraries, like I said, that rely almost solely on in-person programming. Now suddenly an entire system was gathering together to discuss how to provide programming in these completely new ways that we had never talked about before. Most of them obviously involving technology. You know, we tried to come up with other things, and there were certainly things here and there, but the bulk of it was how to do virtual programming. And this was a huge learning curve and a barrier for a lot of people that just didn't have that type of that training. There were a lot of deer in the headlights stares during that first meeting. And maybe some of that was because we were still pretty new to using Zoom, but I think a lot of it was just, we had all these great ideas, but it was hard to fathom how we could implement them. So here's how we collaborated between 65 libraries. So first we developed a summer reading committee, and it had, two chairs and a contact at the system level. So Angela Newman was our contact at North Country Library System, and whatever we needed, she was there. Anyone who wanted to be involved in the summer reading committee could join from any of the libraries. This was not limited to directors. This was, of course, for staff as well. And so maybe we had 30 to 35 libraries, I think, just regularly participating for the summer reading committee. So that group focused on offering opportunities for libraries to collaborate. It came up with recommendations on issues and topics that pertain to summer reading, and it curated resources for summer reading. The collaborative summer reading program acted as an opt-in program, so it allowed flexibility in each library's involvement as it suited their mission, their service area, their budget, their capacity even to do things. So it was a completely voluntary, opt-in program. And maybe a library that had a little bit more funding, a little bit more training, could opt in further than a library with an $8,000 budget a year and 10 hours a week. They couldn't do as much, and that was okay across the board. Everyone, whether you did a little or a lot or anything, it really didn't matter. It was more, we wanted to provide these services, and we wanted everybody to be able to use them in whatever way they could. So because these weekly meetings started to get so big and very long, we need to implement some kind of organizational flow. So first, like I said, we had all 65 libraries in the North Country Library System. If a library wanted to be involved in the collaborative summer reading efforts, they joined the summer reading committee. So within that committee, in order to further break things down, we created task groups. And I really like that word, task groups, rather than some kind of other subcommittee. I like it. It's very action oriented to me. And that's what these groups were. They were developed to tackle any necessary work related to the group's purpose. The scope of each group's work was assigned during our general discussion at the summer reading program meetings. So the group collaborative as a whole would assign these individual task groups homework, essentially. So we had groups including early literacy programming, school age programming, teen programming, reading encouragement incentives, and marketing. So each task group, like I said, essentially got homework each week assigned by the committee and then reported back the following week on, whatever progress was made. So it worked really well to break things down into very, bite-sized pieces, and kept everyone from being overwhelmed. And everybody sort of fell into their own interest. For instance, I don't have a real solid background on early literacy programming, but I have, a better background in marketing. And so, I'd be over in marketing, or, vice versa, something like that. So there were three, I think, main great outcomes of this collaboration. So first, we were providing a central location for news about the library programming. So what ended up happening was North Country Library System developed, Angela Newman created a live guide on the North Country Library System page with all the info about summer reading for patrons. We had a staff-facing one, but there was one for patrons to go to and look at. So there was all kinds of different information in there about summer reading and things they could participate in. But one of the I think the greatest part about that is we had a calendar. So the calendar had everything on there that was accessible system-wide. So if I did a story time at 10 o'clock on Mondays, I would put that on there. And the reason that this worked so well was we were able to cover so many different time slots. We were able to offer so much to people in 4 different counties because we were organizing our schedules kind of. So if I did it at Mondays at 10 o'clock, another library, Oswego or Fulton, they probably wouldn't do a story time at that time. They would pick an open time slot so we could cover more areas. It was not, we didn't have 17 libraries doing story time at 10 o'clock on Mondays. We were able to sort of spread it out so we could reach the most people, the mom that works Tuesday, Wednesday, or we had evening programming for parents that could do stuff after work and things like that. So anything that was available, like craft times or anything like that was available to the whole system, was posted on this calendar. So 65 libraries had access to this one calendar, and we were really able to cover a whole lot of time slots with programming that could reach so many people. And I just think about when we do something at our own libraries, which is great. I love in-person stuff. Can't wait to get back to it. But it really makes me happy knowing that we can serve such a larger population with certain things if we sort of work together to cover the spread, like I said. So that was the first thing that I think was just really great that came out of this collaboration. So the second one is expenses. Like I said, we have libraries with, larger budgets, but most of them are very small budgets. Anywhere from under $8,000, maybe to $200,000, maybe is that's not even really standard. A lot of us are under $100,000 a year and things like that. So things start to get expensive. And so if we had to pay for something, even if it's just, a platform or something like that, it was easier to share. So a lot of times you can get, you might collaborate with the library in your next town and share a program or something, and it costs less. But this way, because everything was virtual programming, if we did something, most people really gave us quite a discount. Depending on how many libraries opted into it. If 25 libraries opted into this virtual program, that is quite a savings for people. And I think that is a huge wake up call to some of us, that we maybe could have done this in the past. It's not as easy to do with in-person programming, although it's certainly doable, and we have done it. But I think with virtual programming becoming more popular, I think there's going to be a lot more ways to share these expenses where we can. Certainly asking for those big discounts and things like that from people. If you get an opt-in of 30 libraries, that's pretty cool, I think. And then the third one is maybe even the most important is just relationships. When you work in a system, you generally know people, but do you work closely with them? Do you collaborate and develop ideas and really develop these great relationships with other libraries? And I feel like we did that at the North Country Library System. All of these libraries coming together under this crisis and saying, you know what, if we're going to survive, if we're going to really serve our communities, we need to have a relationship with each other. We need to talk to each other. We need to do things a little bit differently than we've been doing it, where we're kind of working autonomously and things like that. We need to operate a little more as a collective. And that can only help our communities. That obviously that's what we did. And if we can keep doing that in the future, I think our what we do for our communities can only get better and better. And I'd like to kind of share with you one example of that my library did. So we're in a school district, and we're not a school district library, we're a municipal library. But in this one school district, there are 3 municipal libraries, 3 separate municipal libraries. And we have generally always operated mostly autonomous. We don't necessarily do much programming together. We kind of do our own thing. And that's for, I think, a variety of reasons. But when we started talking about this, the summer reading program and things like that, we realized it just really made sense because we're really serving the same areas. I serve my village, and there's the town and things like that, but we really serve mostly the same area of the school district. And so we thought, why can't we maybe come up with some things together? Because these, especially the kids, like, these are my kids, these are your kids. Let's work together to bring them whatever we can. And so as we're talking about this, one of the things we really realized was we have different strengths in each of the libraries. One library has an employee that is like super spectacular at teen programming. I mean, like, knows Discord inside and out, and all these awesome gaming things, and really, really knows what teens want. And then, one library is great at kids programming and preschool, talking is teaching things, and early literacy and stuff like that. And so we all had these different strengths within our libraries. And it just made so much more sense to utilize the strengths of each individual person in each library to create this amazing, cohesive program. And that's what we did. We had these, we worked together with the 3 libraries. We called ourselves the Viking Libraries because the school district is the Thousand Island Vikings. And we created a calendar, and each of us took our role within that calendar to bring programming to the school district, to the community, with all three libraries working together. And this not only brought so much more depth to our programming and so much more that we could give to our community, but it also really showed, I like to say, a united front to our community. You know, anytime, maybe library, you know, when libraries go out on the school ballot and things like that, this really showed our community, wow, they are working really hard to become this really great unit and develop something really special to bring to our community. And that is, I've heard that several times over the last few months, that that people just never expected to see the three libraries working like this together. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But it's nice to hear, and it shows me that the people are appreciating that. And so we were able to, you know, I'm reaching my people, and the other libraries reaching their people, and they're reaching, the third library is reaching their people, but we're all giving them a cohesive program across the board. And it looks very professional and put together, and just really creative. So I think that's I just wanted to share that story with you, because it really kind of shows that all of this kind of shows that collaboration is just, you can't go wrong with collaboration. We have been doing collaborations for many, many years in libraries. But I think where we need to go next is not only community entities, but collaborating with other libraries and pooling our resources and coming together as a unit to serve our communities even better. You know, if we share our resources, we are only going to be able to give them more than we've ever been able to give them. And I think through the years, we just give more and more and more to our communities. And for me, collaborating with libraries on this level is the next step to giving more to my community. And so I just wanted to share that. That to me is the definition of collaboration for innovative creation. And I think that could be the next step for a lot of libraries in their innovative creation. I hope that gave you some good ideas, some starting points. If you have any questions, I'm here anytime to answer questions. Please feel free to let me know what you think, or if you have any ideas for me. I would love to hear them. I'm really, really excited about what we're going to do in the next few years with libraries. So thank you so much for being here.